It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from SoonerScoop.com. Now, here's the entire SoonerScoop crew. Carey, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, and welcome back. It is another edition of the unofficial 40 podcast from SoonerScoop.com, brought to you by Dead Soxy. We welcome in the entire crew. And Bob Prisbillo, currently my favorite member of the Scoop staff. I'm sorry, Josh. I'm sorry, Eddie. You have fallen far down the ranking. The power rankings are out. Bob Prisbillo, number one, and then you two. I'm not even going to get into that. But Bob Prisbillo.
Is that a 2A or a 2B?
I don't want to say. You know. Okay, wait.
I've never
okay,
been,
no,
I'm
reading
third or fourth
you
anyway.
just helped me figure out the rankings. Bob Prisbillo, number one. Josh McQuistion, number two, who has headphones, and Eddie Radosevich, number three, who screwed up the start of the show because he thought he had to go run and get his headphones at his radio station, which Josh asked the very good question that he doesn't understand if you're not in radio and go into a studio. You do not want to use their headphones because no one takes care of headphones at radio stations. They treat them like crap. They break them, and they never fix them, and then they're always too cheap to replace them. So unless you carry your own personal headphones, it's literally like it's like taking your own toilet paper on vacation with you. It's like you don't want to use that paper thin shit that's in the, even the luxury hotels. You want good paper towels. Or good stuff to wipe your butt with. Same thing with headphones.
I would take it even a step further, Carey. It's almost like I don't want to... people don't take care of their ears like I do. I don't want to put my ears into other people's ears, if you will.
This is true. Gotta Lysol that stuff.
I have like a ear phobia, I guess.
But it's not like you're sharing, wireless Beats or Apple pods
yeah,
or
they're
whatever.
not going in, but at the same time, it's, I don't know.
There's no penetration. I mean,
no, but
still an
there
ear
is
virgin.
A little bit of like ear juice swap I could see being a problem.
There's definitely,
and I just don't want to. I don't want to have that problem.
You're definitely making contact with someone else's DNA when you're sharing headphones.
Yes,
very
exactly. Much so.
So Eddie found a spare pair of headphones that are probably like most of the ones at his radio station. They're broken. I've seen them before. I remember we had to have a talk where I was like, Eddie, you should invest in good headphones because those are not those, what is on your head right now, broken in half.
Well, I was trying to hold on to them for as long as possible. They were a Christmas present from Santa Claus, and I didn't want to be disrespectful.
Like, we literally have 8 pairs of studio quality head. I gave Bob a pair just when I dropped off his microphone, which he is number one in the power rankings, by the way, because without even me badgering him, which I always have to do, you guys know this about everything. Download this app, check out this website, sign up for this. No one ever listens to me, but unbeknownst to me, Bob Prisbillo got his new microphone set up and working. So, Bob, congratulations. You've moved to the top of the Sooner Scoop power rankings.
It's about time. Now, I give a shout out to Brittany. She made a makeshift office in the sunroom where I always do the Zooms. Anyway, now I got a desk and stuff like that, too.
Oh, my God. Are we going to have you a video pod set up here soon?
So my internet connection is not the strongest, so we'll see how long that goes.
You're like Rachel Ray in the new studio.
See, now, I feel a little like the teacher's pet that has been scorned here. I've, for the last week, been helping Carey check audio issues, including last night where we were going over some video stuff that I won't even pretend I understand, but he's got questions. I'm like, okay, I'm checking my stuff, making sure it's okay, and I'm still not accepted. There comes a point when you just have to accept that you're never going to be good enough, that, that person's just never gonna like the way you do things. I'm accepting this life.
I see myself as Todd Marinovich's father. All right, I am on you all the time, driving you to be better. Todd Marinovich, that piece of shit, never would have made it in the NFL if not for his God-fearing father. All right, now he did drive him to cocaine abuse. and his life was ruined, but he never had a Big Mac when he was growing up. So, you got to balance the scales there. He lived a lot of life as a perfect human being before he became a junkie.
You'll never, there in the timeline of my life, you can never be blamed for my poor decisions in life. So you're going to be okay in this. You are legally, your hands are clean.
Are your photos not fantastic now? Have I not told you that you often take better photos than I do? Because I've pushed you years and years, pushed you. Of course, that only took 10 years.
I was just saying, pushing, shaming. I mean, there's a way to look at it. I mean, I'm not sure you're ready to teach third graders, but in the scheme of life, yes.
Give me my chance. Just put me in the game, Coach. Put me in the game, and let's see what happens. Actually, I'd probably get kicked out the second day of
100%. As would I. So no shame.
They need the first day to get the board of superintendents together to vote me out, and then the second day they wouldn't let me back in the building.
Yeah.
And then I had all this stuff set up for Eddie to check out today, which I'm going to turn all my attention to Eddie now. You guys, you and Bob are off the hook. Eddie is my.
I want to be the Jerry Bomar of this podcast.
So are you saying that you're going to do something illegal and get banned from the pod? If I am hard on you?
I'm definitely showing up to practice. I can tell you that.
Anyway, so I had
maybe a little hungover.
I had our whole system set up, and I wanted to show it off to Eddie. Like, maybe he would be impressed once with something.
Well, I didn't know. I just figured you bought
and
this,
just not shit on
new
it.
Mics. I figured that we would use them.
We didn't have a Zoom call, so no reason for Eddie to come down to Norman.
Yeah, that's true. But we are on Thursdays now, so I mean that's moving forward. We got a pod on Thursdays just because of all the Zooms going on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then we could pod, but then Bob couldn't write and get you your stories out that you want to read. So that's
we might have more content items on Tuesday and Wednesday that will replace the expectancy of the pod.
Sure,
right?
Yeah. You'll definitely be getting more stuff on Tuesday and Wednesdays, and then the pod will come out late on Thursdays. So.
And it's going to be tough for Bob to be Carey's number one guy when he literally commits a felony and just murders someone on Wednesday afternoon for the transcribing and then going straight into the pod. I think Bob would have just melted down.
There were a couple times, like when the pod was over, I was like, oh my, I hate Wednesdays.
Can we please stop asking about the fucking thigh pads? Can we please just stop doing it?
No. I'm not even in there, and it's obnoxious.
Pads. They're fucking thigh pads. I mean, come on.
There was a little bit of like breaking news within the thigh pad story this week, though. Spencer Rattler's not wearing the what are like I guess the
designer,
the designer one.
Yeah.
So he's going back. He's been humbled. The non-conference has humbled the man.
So he's
it's
not
like when
wearing
Buki gave away his sledgehammer.
He's not wearing the rattlesnake with a penis logo anymore on his thighs.
That's
Correct.
what he said on yesterday
that's
on
exactly
Wednesday.
What
I said it's a bad look. I mean, like he's got the diamond encrusted necklace. He's got the thigh pads. It's like you're not playing very well, and so it just feeds the trolls. I mean, that's all it does. And they're like, who do you think Oklahoma made you? You didn't make Oklahoma. Like I can see people getting mad about that. To me, you just have to be smart about that kind of stuff. Like.
Yeah.
If you're going to go out there and do all this name, image, likeness stuff, try and include, your team and I know they can't use the school logo, which is stupid, and I knew it would lead to this stuff in the first place. If Betsy on Etsy can get a licensing fee to sell her needlepoint OU stuff, then players should be able to do it too.
And I thought that was supposed to be coming, right?
Yeah, but they got to get like a group licensing deal, and I don't know how that all works. I mean, North Carolina was like the first school to do it. I would just be happy if they'd have. I've talked about this a lot. Like if they had some kind of a highlight package that we could use if we did some stuff with players, which we're going to be doing. Everybody kind of knows that. We just haven't made the official announcement, which is coming soon. I know I said that last week, but yeah, I mean. the Rattler thing,
like,
yeah. I mean, I think that's the smart thing. It just looks bad when you have your logo. It's almost it's not like Chico's bail bonds, but it's not far away. I mean, it sends a wrong message, I think.
The thigh pad thing is a little bit like when in Little League Baseball, old Ed would let me wear the flip-up sunglasses, but the second I went 0 for 3 with a couple strikeouts in an error, those bitches were going back to mom's purse.
And that's why I want to give Eddie the props for asking that question about the criticism being warranted for the way that he's played the first 3 games.
I think
it's a really good question.
Big J journalism from Edward Lawrence.
Every once in a while I'll ask a serious question. It's almost like one of those things too, though. It's like, I think I kind of like the answer, but I can see how it would rub some people the wrong way.
It definitely did on the board.
Sure.
Oh, you mean did they take time out from demanding that Caleb Williams take over the position in order to criticize you for asking a tough question?
By about Wednesday, they decided that Lincoln wasn't going to hire an offensive coordinator during the middle of the week. So we move on. We move on to something else.
No, I mentioned that this morning, that was something that showed up on our board, and it was like disbelief and I was like, you haven't been to the Crimson Corner. You don't know.
There's a lot of crazy ideas. But the good news is, and I think the good news for a lot of people is, and I tweeted this morning, it's like, I don't know how anybody survived the 1-2 start last year. Like, looking back on it and what the fan base feels like now when they're 3-0, and I get it. Like, I understand all the reasons why people are angry, but I don't know how anybody survived the 1-2 start.
Well, I mean, first off, you played Iowa State as one of your first 3 teams. The Kansas State game was a total shocker. But, I mean, it was the first time that in the modern era that OU'd ever lost back-to-back games.
Which is just,
Bob
at
Stoops
the end
never
of the day,
lost back-to-back games.
Somebody tweeted me about like the pain that Oklahoma fans go through. And it's like, if you only knew the pain that some of these fan bases, they would literally maybe give up a firstborn for it.
Well,
you think Florida
and if it's
State
somebody
wouldn't love to be 3-0 right now, no matter who they beat.
And imagine if it's like an OU fan that's like younger than 25, that doesn't even remember Schnellenberger or Blake or any of those times. They literally have only known, oh yeah, the Big 12 championship is a birthright. Like that's just something they think is assumed, and didn't suffer through Jake Sills or any of the other madnesses of the late 90s.
I mean, Pat Fletcher was a state hero. I mean,
I mean, what is he doing now? Like, is he prevalent anywhere? Like, he feels like one of those guys that if now he would have kind of cycled that into something meaningful. Like, he runs his own, I don't know, small business or something, and uses that
runs a feed
the notoriety
store,
he had.
I can see him running like a feed store.
Sure.
I don't even think those exist in Norman city limits, but
I was going to say it's a weird place. Maybe in Noble. Shout out Jason Kersey.
Yeah. So, by the way, kind of going back, and Josh, thank you for joining us on the post-game pod. I know everybody enjoyed it. Thank you for controlling your drinking throughout the day, so you could do that.
We'll see you at 1:15 this week.
Yeah, I'm. Let's go ahead and let's call me tentative for that one.
I think Eddie and I finished at 2:30 a.m. the last night game. Of course, that was 30 minutes late. So about 2 a.m. you should be ready to go to bed.
Yeah, but Western Carolina also had a 12-minute fourth quarter. This is going to be a late Saturday.
It'll be interesting because, I mean, West Virginia is going to want to run the ball. I mean, they're going to try to eat clock, do exactly what Nebraska did, shorten that thing as much as they can. And Oklahoma offensively is going to be interesting with how they're going to go at West Virginia.
Have you seen
that defensive line's good?
Have you seen what Jared Dage's season high is in rush yards?
Oh God, no.
It was against Long Island University. He
Obviously
ran for a total of -3 yards.
Yeah, they've been using Garrett Green as sort of a change of pace, what OU fans want Caleb Williams to be during the last week or so.
But Jared Dage is going to have his hands full with that defensive front now. We'll see if it does not sound like Jalen Redmond will be a part of that.
Yeah. It almost seems like, too, that, and I haven't gone back and just watched snap for snap of the game of West Virginia and Virginia Tech last week, but, I mean, West Virginia basically held on for dear life. Jared Jagey
pulled an
did not
OU.
play particularly well.
Yeah, they pulled an OU. They just took off the second half. And Virginia Tech, though, that's one of the best wins of the Big 12.
Sure. I think you got to throw, OSU and Boise State in there, but I mean, the good wins for the Oklahoma school or the Big 12 schools is not just exactly murderer's row.
Kansas State over Stanford. That was a good win.
Yeah. As it turns out, I didn't think
Stanford gets better,
much. Right.
Yep.
Yeah, they didn't face the quarterback that seems like he's getting Stanford going a little bit. But
might have torched them if they play.
Yeah.
The good news in all of that, though, is the fact that you look at a West Virginia team that, for some reason or another, and I think that they're much better than the 17, 18, and 19 teams that Oklahoma played. But at the same time, the numbers offensively that Lincoln Riley and Oklahoma have put up against West Virginia over the last 3 times that they played are just astronomical. I don't know if you guys saw it in the game notes, but you're talking about 56.7 points per game over 17, 18, 19 to go along with 624 yards on average. 10.5 yards per play in those 3 games.
The 17 and 18 makes sense because OU gets better as the season goes on. But 19, you had Austin Kendall coming back, and they weren't ready yet to pose a real challenge. But, yeah, this is a team that no matter how good the Mountaineers have been, the Sooners have been able to handle them, and usually pretty easily, too.
Well, West Virginia's never helped themselves out, and I know we talked about this in years past, but they've always tried to start fights before the game. It's like, stop pissing off OU before the game could even start, and then they just cave your heads in.
That was a little bit of a dogfight in 18 as well. I can't remember what penalty was it over on the West Virginia sideline that kind of changed the game there late in I want to say maybe the beginning of the fourth quarter.
It was somebody blocked someone while they're out of bounds. Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
Yep. And it was like
just completely stalled the drive.
God, who was it? It might have been. It seems like it
Buzzy
was
that got blocked out of bounds.
I think that's what it was.
I don't have a clue who it was, but I do remember their fans being upset about it.
And not to mention, he had the fumble return in that game as well as Caleb Kelly.
Yeah, Caleb Kelly
2 defensive touchdowns.
Still looks at that as his favorite play from his career so far.
Guys, it's just amazing what perspective will do. Like, you hear some buzz amongst West Virginia people, like that. There's a feeling, hey, maybe the gap's closer than it has been. And yeah, like I said in the post game pod, I think this weekend we'll get an idea of is it been a focus thing for OU, or are they actually moving in the right direction? West Virginia's averaging 2/3 of a yard less per play than Oklahoma, and Oklahoma's fans are ready to burn the entire offense to the ground. And not that it's a great West Virginia offense, but it's interesting how that perspective will mess with you a little bit.
It's kind of been interesting this week. I feel like there's a large segment of the fan base, and I feel like I'm even included in this group as far as kind of what you said. It's like, okay, they're getting to conference play. Everybody take a deep breath. And I'm afraid if OU doesn't put up 55 points, people are really going to start hitting the panic button this week.
It's interesting because they are heading.
That is going to be the case.
Oh, 100%.
It's one of 2 situations. It's either they waited for conference play and they woke up, or they waited for conference play and there's no next level for those guys to get to. And then everyone's going to be so disappointed about what they heard in July and August compared to what was on the field during the last month.
Well, here's the thing. There's one person that this game is massively important to, and it's the question that you asked yesterday, Eddie. People are starting to gather. They're starting to collect. They're starting to become I don't want to say mob. That's too strong a term. But the forces are gathering against Spencer Rattler. Like, we've heard it, and we hear it, first more than anyone because, we've got the largest community out there for, OU sites. So just like the that Lincoln Riley might need to hire an OC, like that stuff kind of it germinates on the message boards, and then it starts to hit the mainstream and the radio and the television, and then it eventually goes national. But Spencer Rattler needs to have a breakout game more than anyone else on this team, because those critics are only going to get louder if he continues to play like this. And not that he's playing terrible.
In some regards, it's warranted. It is very much warranted.
But the whole replacing Spencer Rattler, that's not going to happen, but it's not going to stop more and more people from asking for it if he doesn't play well in this game.
The thing Spencer said is take 2 or 3 throws away from each game and we're good to go. But you can't keep saying that every single week. You don't get a 2-3 pass, free pass that you get to make terrible decisions. I think maybe you live with it the first week, but from that point on, everyone's expecting perfection because that's what you're supposed to be for this team for this season.
I got to look this up and make sure, but someone gave me a stat, and I haven't fact-checked it, which nobody does anymore, which is why you get terrible stats all the time. But if you just look at the box scores this year. I mean, Spencer Rattler, game 1, how many touchdown passes did he throw for? 1, and he threw 2 picks. Western Carolina, and I know that game was out of hand.
That's 5-0.
But that's the one game where he's gobbling up some stats, 5 TDs, but that's not a real team. I was told this the last 6 games last year, he never threw for more than 2 touchdowns.
That's right.
Is that right?
I think that's right, yeah.
That's just incredible. I mean, for a quarterback at the University of Oklahoma.
He's actually, and if you want to look at the final 3 games, Jason Kersey wrote a great kind of deep inside the number thing on The Athletic this morning. His completion percentage is higher than it was last year. It's from 65.8 to 74.7. We're talking final 3 games of 2020 as opposed to the first 3 games of 2021. So 65.8 to 74.7, which in summer terms is, I think a lot of people are saying, is a little bit of a tip of the cap to the 747 building on Campus Corner that's no longer there. And yardage-wise, he's up from 712 to 761. Now, the thing that you say about this offense, and I completely get this, is anytime you say anything positive about it, you have to say, but the numbers are skewed because of the second game against Western Carolina.
The point of concern for me is the yards per completion.
Yeah,
that's what we're just not used to seeing that. I don't care if they're taking away the deep ball or whatever, but you have 24 completions for only 210 yards. That's not OU football. You have 24 completions. That should be 380 or around 400. So that's something that just has to be fixed. They can't, as much as they can execute little by little. We expect the big chunk plays to make their lives a lot easier going forward.
As disappointing as Spencer Rattler has been, I think at some point, in a way, we almost got to start talking about the guys around him. And I think that there was a little bit of insinuation there this week from Lincoln Riley, and even maybe a little bit from Rattler as far as another great number coming from Pro Football Focus. OU receivers are gaining fewer yards after the catch this year. Last year, it was at 6.9. This year, through 3 games, it's 4.5 yards yak. I mean, it's just you got to get a little bit more. You got to start breaking some tackles. And I think, as much as you probably don't talk about it enough as far as, the one thing that what spurred the Mario Williams big play in the first quarter last week? It was a great block by Drake Stoops.
Right, yeah.
And that's fair, but at the same time, part of what you're talking about is Spencer Rattler leading receivers into tackles rather than
very, very true.
And don't get me wrong, that's not all of it. My biggest issue, and it was something I didn't notice until the rewatch for the Idiot, was the announcing crew, which I think it was Klatt and Gus Johnson, were talking about Oklahoma's receivers being some of the best in the country when a play breaks down at working with their quarterback. I think that's been a problem this year. When Rattler breaks out, I haven't seen guys working vertical, working side to side. Like, it seems like, and I don't know what's going through their heads, so I won't pretend I do, but it just doesn't seem right, because that has always been something OU's been very good at, is kind of the fire drill. And in this situation, it just doesn't seem to be happening the same.
I think it's tough, though, when your quarterback is not committing to, staying in the pocket, or at least, when you see him take off, he is looking for a receiver, but he's usually looking, at one side of the field and trying to see if he can find somebody down the field. Because he's always making that throw to the sideline where the guy is kind of running back with him. Of course, you don't want him making that throw across his body to the middle of the field. So,
guys, does it just? And I said this in the idiot. Does it just feel like a confidence thing? Like, which is hard to say, because Spencer Rattler seems like one of those guys that is just, I'm the best guy here. I guess I've always bought into that. There's just things he's doing. Yeah, exactly. Is it overcompensation, to use some psychology, bull? Is it? He's missing stuff that he shouldn't miss.
John Shin and Gary Niemiec and I were talking about this after the press conference on Tuesday. It's like, whether it was right or wrong, and even go back into 16 into Baker's first, or 15 into Baker's first year, it was one of those things too that he might make some mistakes, but when he was going to throw the ball, he was going, no doubt about it, I'm putting everything I got into this. I think sometimes, like the early interceptions against Tulane, it's almost like he became a little bit more cautious and is like, I don't want to throw it there because I don't want to take this chance. And I say that, and he had a couple bad throws last week, but at the same time, it's like, at some point, you just got to let it go. Whatever happens is going to happen.
I noticed that on this little slant, he tried to throw Jaden Hazelwood, I think in the third quarter, and it was one of those things, like, it's pitching for a guy of his talent, and Hazelwood wins inside. It should have been just pitch and catch, just easy, nothing, and he overthrows him by a few yards, and you're like, man, that looks like a guy trying to guide it rather than just throw the ball, man. Just be the talented dude that you are and let it go. And again, like I said, I wouldn't have thought that would be an issue for Spencer Rattler, because everybody's like, oh, it's the NIL, it's all this other stuff. I wonder if he's doubting himself. That deep ball to Mario Williams that last year would have been 6. I mean,
tons of room. Just lead the guy.
Yep. Just take him toward the sideline, and that's 6 points. And
he throws it right down the seam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, that's not him, man. That for everything you want to doubt about Spencer Rattler, that's just the pure throwing the ball. It's not a problem.
And the thing about it too is I think that Spencer, he would be the first person to tell you when he goes back and watches it and says, "Yeah, that's not the throw that I need to make there." And even the other play that you highlighted on the Monday morning quarterback, or the Monday morning idiot, Josh, it's like, there is nobody within 25 yards of Kennedy Brooks on that swing pass. It's the easiest throw he's going to make all game, and he tries to force it into triple coverage.
Which almost negates what I'm talking about, because if you're lacking for confidence, why the hell would you make that throw?
Sure.
So, like, I don't know what to make of it. It doesn't seem to add up. It just seems like a guy that's just, I don't know, like, it's just not connecting right now for whatever reason.
I'm wondering what he's like Tuesday and Wednesday, because we hear that talked about so much. Tuesday and Wednesday, that's when you got to be sharp. That's when you got to prepare. That's how you give the coaches an idea of what you're going to do Saturday. So what's his mindset? How's he going about things? How's his mechanics? That's what I keep was like. If he had the proper mechanics, he's going to be pretty dang good. But there's times, I don't know if it's arrogance or lack of confidence or what have you. But
I mean, there was that time
he's not stepping into his throws like he needs to.
There was that time during the summer where I even used the capital uncapital sarcasm font when he was doing the behind the back throws and stuff out in Arizona. And I was jokingly saying I'm going to do it. I don't care what people say. I wish you'd concentrate more on just completing regular passes and throwing them behind your back all the time. And he blocked me. And I've been unblocked since, but I don't know. Does that say something?
what you were saying is you were right, and those fans were right, that throw could have been better spent, is what you're telling me. That throw could have been the difference.
But like you guys said, throwing is not the issue. His arm talent is not the issue. It's other things. And, I mean, look, we could talk about Spencer Rattler all you want, but it's just like with the Kennedy Brooks thing. It's like, if you want to ignore what a part blocking can play in destroying an offensive possession, he's the perfect example. Like, you miss a blitzer, just whiff on him, and all of a sudden you're in long yardage and you've blown up an offensive possession for a team that's not really great at 3rd and 15. I mean, they have enough, tough of a time with 2nd and 10. Like, it's about more than just talent. I mean, at some point you have to start saying, if this team doesn't get any better, is it something more mental? Is it something more chemistry? Is it something coaching? I mean, there's other things that are going on here that are preventing this team from being as good as we thought that they could be.
And it's emphasized even more when you're talking about a game like the Nebraska game was, when you have limited possessions, and they're going to make you basically, if you're going to have to drive and go 14 play drives or 10 play drives or 12 play drives, which were their 3 touchdown drives last week against Nebraska, it's like you cannot live in 2nd and 10. You cannot live in 3rd and 8. You have to execute on those first couple plays to put yourself into position to be able to execute and to get into a 3rd and 5 or to a 3rd and short.
Exactly. And that's been their problem. They just,
sure,
the 14 play drives, those are impressive, but what makes Lincoln Riley special is he has 3 play drives all the time with his really good quarterbacks.
Sure. Yeah, and the big play, the explosive play through 3 games, just it simply hasn't been there. And how many opportunities have they truly had? It's probably a handful, and they just haven't been able to take advantage of it.
Do they need to move Marvin Mims back out to the outside and just let him do what he did last season?
It's so hard because he's such a good, runner with the ball. I mean, his punt returns show you that. But he's just not getting the ball enough inside. Neither is Stogner.
Yeah, that's been
that whole
the H-back thing has been it's been almost inexplicable in terms of, like, I thought that was going to be the group that you go when you need a security blanket, when you need to go get 7 or 8 yards, you should be able to go find a Stogner. You should be able to go find a Braden Willis. And we've seen him
Rattler did that last year. I mean, Rattler relied on Stogner all the time. So is it that Stogner is just not the same guy after the staph infection? Or, I mean, I think Braden Willis is pretty good. I think Jeremiah Hall's pretty good. They haven't been used all that much.
I mean, I'd be seeing ghosts if I had been thrown over the middle every time and almost been murdered.
He tried to go to him on that 3rd down when he ended up, the pressure was in his face, and Stogner almost made a great catch on it when Spencer just kind of had to throw it in his general area because he had some pressure. Kennedy Brooks didn't do very well with the blitz pickup. But, again, he got focused on Stogner and completely missed a guy to the left that was just, I mean, it was a free first down. I think it was, I want to say it was Mario Williams, but I'm not 100% about that. Like I said, from play to play, it's a different problem. Like, it's not like, oh, he always locks on. Oh no, he looks around really well, but he makes the wrong choice when he does. Like, I don't know. It just feels like a guy that's not comfortable in his own skin right now.
Well, and remember, guys, I mean, this offense was pretty bad a lot of times last year until Ramondre Stevenson came back, and then it got all of a sudden a lot easier. And they're running the ball really well coming out of that Nebraska game. They've just got to integrate that more into their offense and play action and keeping people off of balance, because right now nobody's off balance against this OU offense. Nobody's trying to figure things out as the game goes on.
Yeah,
which is it's really kind of interesting because it really is like, the season can be broken up into one or two things. It's pre-post benching against Texas and then pre-post Texas Tech. And you're right. And Bob, you've talked about it before, just as far as like going into that game in Lubbock, Rattler even had said something as far as like, we need to start basically beating the shit out of teams. I forget what the exact phrase was, but they did come out and had a little bit of attitude about them. And that was the game that things started to happen a little bit more downfield for him, and rightfully so. It probably coincided with the return of Ramondre Stevenson, but at the same time, it's like, if you can take any positive out of last week, besides the fact that they won the game, it was the fact that they averaged 5.5 per carry on the ground.
I think he said it was time for them to start to dominate somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
that's it.
And how they use Gray and Brooks, that's just going to have to be how they do it the rest of the season. You can't worry about carries and being injured.
And I think that's how they started the season. I think they did start scared with their running backs.
There's no question. Just got to roll with it. Those are the two you have. They need at least 25 to 35 touches, somewhere in that range. They had 29 last Saturday. That's how you're going to get to where you want to get to.
I mean, there is an interesting conversation to be had as well, just as far as what Rattler isn't going to be able to give you with his legs. And, in past years, whether it be Baker, Kyler, or Jalen, there was an element, at least a little bit, of him pulling it or keeping it and making you pay in that way.
Again, and I know it's come up plenty, but it's not just, he needs to keep it and run sometimes. He's got to read it right, because there are times when it's not just about, he keeps it or gives it, but like they'll have a pass to work off of it. He's got an option to throw that'll be there, and he'll give, or he'll keep when he should have. I mean, like, it's just, again, I can't, I said, it's one of those things where you have too much experience to be making these mistakes. These are things I mean, like, because this is, guys, I mean, high school quarterbacks can run RPO all day, every day, because they know there's one key. You're reading one guy, and obviously it varies from front to front what you're doing, but this isn't, I mean, and I get that it's a quick decision. Before anybody gets mad, I'm certainly not saying I could do it. Spencer Rattler has done this for long enough to understand what he should be doing here.
All right, we want to take a quick time out to talk about our friends at Dead Soxy, great sponsors of the pod, big fans of you guys and all the support that you've given them. So they wanted to lock it up with us on the pod, including a brand new college release with the State and Stripes Crimson 8-bit Maker Bayfield. I have a hard time saying that. Wagon and State Text. Really great looking socks, and they want you to have a special offer, as they always do for listeners of the Unofficial 40. Just use promo code BOOMER and you'll get 20% off. Now, there's only, as I look on the website, there's only 27 pairs left of the 8-bit Maker Bayfield socks, so you want to jump on that now. As soon as you hear this, go check out deadsoxy.com and look at those socks, because you're going to want those in your collection, especially very comfortable, featherweight, very light, excellent socks, especially be wearing on game days. Now that the weather's cooling down, you can wear the longer socks, so you want to jump in on this now.
Yeah, and the best part about it, Carey, is as much as I love the Oklahoma stuff, I know that we have a bunch of Oklahoma State fans that listen to the podcast as well, and we have a special for them with Oklahoma State, and I believe the promo code Pete.
Yes, promo code Pete, and you can get 20% off even for the OSU fans that listen in. They got the cowboy hat, the State and Stripes, and the orange and black and gray, and then pistols, as well as the state text in orange and black. So there you go. Who says that we don't care? Like, we know we screwed you over. OU screwed you over. So we're trying to take care of you with Dead Soxy, Oklahoma State fans. This is all we can do. This is the best we can do, but that's what we're doing, is we're giving you 20% off the Oklahoma State socks too. So don't say not
a detriment to the state at all. I can tell you that.
Don't say that we never did anything for you, because we got you 20% off the coolest socks out there. So go check them out, deadsoxy.com. Promo code Boomer or Pete for 20% off. What do you guys take from the fact that Cody Jackson was more involved last week? Do you think
somewhere in between that's really, really good news and kind of sort of bad news that
no one has emerged?
He's jumping in this thing, right? Yeah. That he's jumping in this bitch so easily.
Yeah. What's interesting is Cody Jackson's the kind of guy that's got the speed that could give them that vertical threat they're looking for, because that's what he is. He's a vertical guy, which has been interesting because everything he's caught's been underneath so far. But he has that kind of skill set where I thought that was like, I was a little worried he was going to be a one-trick pony for Oklahoma, and that was going to be his role. I've been impressed with how he looks. I think he looks like a player.
He's looked good, yeah.
Yeah, but I agree. I mean, like, it's concerning that a guy that, like I said, I thought had some limitations out of high school has come in and that quickly become part of the, the rotation.
But, it's hard to ignore also that even though it wasn't Kyler to CeeDee Lamb, that connection was pretty strong between Theo Weiss and Spencer Rattler at times last year. Like, I think that would have been someone that he definitely would have relied on at the start of the season.
Particularly by the end of the year. It seemed like he had really kind of come into his own.
And that would go with what Lincoln said Tuesday, that a lot of these receivers and the running backs he never played with. And that's why I kind of asked that question to Spencer yesterday. It was like, is it something that as much as you work in spring and 7-on-7 during summer, does it just have to happen in a game setting to get the chemistry? Because there's just a lot of these guys that he didn't know anything about until the last year, and it just still feels like he's learning how to play with those guys, and sometimes that's growing pains that come along with it.
Which doesn't make any sense why Stogner's not a bigger factor. Because that's the one guy out there that he had a connection with last year.
Well, and it only gets exacerbated by the fact that Theo, it was so late. It wasn't like he got hurt in June. He had all fall to kind of get used to it, get ready to roll, and then almost the minute the season's upon them, this guy's not going to be there anymore. So I think it only increases that absence. You notice that guy, that 10's not out there. But it did seem like last week he and Jaden Hazelwood, like there really was some chemistry there where they were starting to figure it out.
I mean, he's targeting Mario Williams and Jaden Hazelwood, I think, more than any other receiver on the offense right now.
They're just not getting yards.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't target Mario Williams enough. That doesn't exist. Give him the ball more, whatever it is.
Okay, let's move over to the defensive side a little bit. I think the one thing that most people were curious about coming out of the game, of course, Billy Bowman doesn't play. He should be back this week, which will bolster them. Woody Washington, Bob, sounds like
significant part of the season, but it could be worse.
Yeah, I've heard some rumblings that don't be expecting him to be coming back anytime soon.
And I really need to go back to Western Carolina and try to see where it happened. Because in a blowout like that, if he's taken out of the game, you don't really notice it. And I don't remember him like going to the locker room or anything like that. So I might have to re-watch that sucker.
But it was interesting that Jeremiah Cradell had so few snaps and Justin Broyles had a lot. I think to most people, just because of the history of Justin Broyles, and Lincoln kind of seemed to insinuate that Cradell's kind of banged up right now.
I don't know how I felt about that one, because he had evenly distributed the snaps between Bowman and Cradell in the first game.
Yeah.
So if he was banged up, wouldn't it, did it happen in that game and we just didn't know? We know it happened in preseason camp, and that's why Bowman was the starter.
And in the spring, he didn't even play in the spring game.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they raved about Cradell all spring and, all preseason camp. But once again, now that it's time to actually deliver on the field, just haven't seen the kid yet.
Well, then I think that kind of leads into just the question, and the biggest question out there as far as it's like, and I think we've all forgotten it. Why isn't insert player playing? Why is insert player out there?
I'm going to make an NIL.
I have as many questions as you guys do.
I'm going to make an NIL offer right now. I'm going to be like Arby's. So I'll give you a website to go sign up if you would like to start this merch opportunity. I think just Justin Harrington's face on a milk carton. Sell it as a T-shirt.
I DM'd you guys Saturday night after the game. It's like if you guys asked me, give me one player on each side of the ball that hasn't played that you've just been shocked about, that hasn't even really gotten an opportunity Justin
played a
Harrington's
lot in the
number
first
one.
2 weeks, but then
Did he?
last week it was all special teams.
I mean,
He
Josh
was not
Eaton's out there playing with a broken hand, a broken wrist, or whatever it is. I mean, he can't get some time, more time.
I mean,
By the way,
he moved
milk
a
carton,
corner.
I think I said milk carton.
He moved a corner, made all the sense in the world. They had all that depth at safety, and you put him at corner. Another one of those things that just makes a lot of sense to me.
And I mean, Alex Grinch is said, like, we haven't ruled him out of playing corner. Like, I have no idea what's going on there.
I did, but Grinch also did say at this time last year, Woody Washington was a cornerback, was a safety, and Trey Norwood was a cornerback.
Right.
Things can definitely change. He is not set in his ways where if it's not working.
One of your best players, you had him as a backup corner. A year ago, Trey Norwood ended up being your best ball-hawking defensive player.
So he's willing to make the switch. And I think
But he switched him in the first place. That's my point. He was a nickel, and then they made him he started a corner, then he became a nickel, then we saw his value, then they moved him back to corner until they realized, he's a nickel. Yeah.
And you guys correct me if I'm wrong, because I remember I'm really getting this from conversations I had with you all. But wasn't his first kind of love affair was Trey Norwood at nickel? Like that was the first guy he kind of was like, kind of like that.
It was when he got hurt, yeah. And it was like the saddest still to this day, the saddest I've seen Alex Grinch about a player. Like so much emotion. He was like devastated.
Because going way back when, that was, how are you going to tell Buki you're not starting because Trey Norwood's better than you? That was going into the 2019 season. That was the discussion we were sort of having. It's like Trey's better than Buki, but Buki was the 5-star. How are they going to massage all this?
I don't think Buki is ever going to play it down as a starter in the NFL like Trey Norwood already has.
He can play football, man. There's no doubt about it. I was completely just obnoxiously wrong about that.
About Trey Norwood?
Yeah, and just him being a player.
Same. Yep, raise my hand. I'll own that one all day. That was when he left, I was like, well, that's insane. And then when he got drafted, I was like, well, that's insane. And I'm like, okay.
And now
I guess
he's playing
the better
Sundays. Yeah.
Yep. I was like, maybe I'm the crazy one.
And you know what's funny is like we made all those statements with kind of knowing what we know as far as like Alex Grinch loved him. He was coming off of a Cotton Bowl MVP performance in which he had a pick 6. And it was like we pushed away what we had in front of us to almost like, I don't know, like almost ourselves over.
Tylan Wallace versus 2018 was just an image that was hard to forget about.
I think it's one of those things that we've seen so many guys that we thought could play in the NFL that didn't make it. And we're like, we've seen what doesn't work that we think works. You're not one of those guys. Like, we don't think you work, and you're not going to work, but he still worked.
I thought Stephen Parker would have like a 15-year career. So, no,
if you would have told me 2 years ago Parnell Motley was going to wash out and Trey Norwood was going to make the 53-man roster and be playing an impactful role, I would have called you nuts. Like I would have never ever believed that, or that Trey Norwood's having a bigger role than Trey Brown to date. What's happening?
I think that Parnell Motley slander is a little unfair.
No, I'm saying I bought like when Parnell Motley left, I was like, he's got a chance.
Still in the league.
Is he?
Yes.
He's bouncing around practice squads. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. When you said still in the league, I thought it was like he's on a roster. No, I knew like I don't take that as that's not a shot at Parnell Motley. Like I own that his senior year. He was a different guy. But no, I mean, like I said, I was just never a Trey Norwood guy. I didn't get it, and clearly I was wrong.
Looks like he is on the current
the Broncos
Detroit Lions roster. Parnell is, yeah.
Wow.
I want to say he was one of the Broncos' last cuts. Like
yes,
they were.
Yes,
like
he was. That I knew. Then I didn't know where he went from.
Well, he started as a free agent from Tampa Bay, right? And then he had a great
picked off Brady.
preseason.
Yep.
And then they cut him. after the season started, and then he went to Denver, I think.
I think he went out to San Francisco from Tampa and then ended up in
San
Oh, that's right.
Francisco.
That's
Yep.
right.
Mm-hmm. See, that's already 4 teams. I never would have guessed that.
Guys, I mean, say what you will. I mean, that says a lot about OU's current staff and their ability to develop guys because, I mean, 2 years ago, Trey Norwood, Trey Brown, and Parnell Motley were not anybody. I mean, Brown, just because he was so fast, he would have gotten a shot. But the rest of those guys, they would have, they'll sign to a practice or not sign to a practice squad. They'd have got some, undrafted free agent deal, but it wouldn't have been, they wouldn't be where they are.
Yeah, I will say this, though, in terms of everything that's going on out there. I don't really think you can be too critical of the starting safeties right now. I mean, to me, I've been more impressed with Pat Fields than I have Delarian Turner-Yell.
100%. And
that's
that
what I wrote
me.
Monday. Yep. I like what Pat's been doing.
God, that sounds bad. It sounds like I'm dissing Pat with that. I just mean I've always loved ETY. It's been my guy since high school. But yeah, he there's everything in his game says he should be an explosive player that makes big plays, and it's just I keep waiting for that moment to happen, and it's just not going to come.
That Iowa State game in Ames just really hurt him, his overall reputation with people. I mean, and Buki is at fault. I mean, really, what was at fault is their massive tight ends, which everybody has a problem with.
Yeah.
But
I don't think there was anybody in that secondary that felt good about that.
Pat Fields, even when he's in position, he just has terrible hands.
Oh.
You caught the blocked extra point.
He did.
I loved Coe being like, I didn't even know anybody had the ball. Like, I just thought we were going to the sidelines.
By the way, Coe was fantastic.
Yeah.
The hunting
He's
and
going to certainly
eating.
get a lot more opportunity with Jalen sidelined, you would think.
I just mean in his interview, he was fantastic. The whole hunting and eating and searching and destroying kind of. You can tell that defensive line has a really good chemistry together.
Sure. Well, I mean, they've been the strongest unit out of anybody so far. And I think that's why, there's not a whole lot of cause for, defensively, you got to get real nitpicky when you're talking about what is going on because for the most part, they've been pretty good. Now, the linebacker core obviously needs to be better. Safety, it's almost like you talk about it in two ways. It's like, they're okay for what's going on right now, but I think everybody kind of looks to the future and says, well, if they want to play at a national championship level, you can't have these guys out there.
What's bizarre is the reason my opinion of Patrick Fields is so high is because his run fits have been incredible at times. Like, where are the linebackers making that play? Why is it that Pat Fields is having to make that play?
Guys, going back and watching that, I'm not sure it's crazy to say that Danny Stutzman starts a game or two this year.
Teddy has been on record saying as soon as he's healthy, he's starting.
But that doesn't explain any. I mean, Asamoah was making such good strides.
Right.
Yep.
Asamoah's been disappointing. Deshaun White's been disappointing. David Awegbu has been maybe the biggest disappointment. Maybe I had
100%.
too high expectations.
I thought he would be playing himself into day 2 type conversation, and he's
I'll put
nowhere
it this
near
way.
it right now.
This is the kind of the way his season's gone, Josh. Name me a play that he's made in 3 games. Like, literally, name me a play that he has made behind the line of scrimmage.
And that's the thing. I can't remember watching a team that was so good against the run on the front end and the back end, but the middle just does dick.
It's almost like, and Deshaun talked about it a little bit. I think it was the question that you asked of him yesterday, Bob. It's like, it's almost like they're having trouble reading plays, like diagnosing plays.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the problem. Maybe they're just thinking way too much. Go tackle the guy with the football.
Yeah, they're like in a good position if it's a run play, but then they're out of position if it's a pass play, and then they're lost in coverage. And Grinch was saying we got to do a much better job of reading the keys of knowing what's coming, and instead of always reacting to it later and then being a step behind or out of position. And it's definitely been an issue through the first 3 games.
it's kind of like it screws with them that the defensive line is always in the backfield. Like, there's so much chaos up front. It's like, I wonder if they're just getting lost in it.
Defensive line's too good. Slow down, guys.
That's a
guys.
take
The
right
offensive
there.
linemen just come to us because they have no one left to block. They're just bored. You've already run past them.
Well, I mean, that was the whole, control your gap scheme that's made for linebackers.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
It's just crazy. I mean, because, guys, you remember in the preseason, like, we've talked about some of the things that we've said in the preseason that we were worried about. Linebacker was one of the things I was most confident about. Boy, they got depth. I don't know how they're going to do this.
The coaches are on record saying that they had 14 guys they felt confident in playing.
Somebody brought it up the other day. I mean, what are they getting out of that rush spot behind Nick Bonito? As such,
Stripling and Kelly, yeah.
I mean, Kelly's done okay, but Stripling's done almost nada.
Yeah. Would you
Reggie
consider
Grimes
moving
has
Aguebu
been
back there?
much better on the other side.
I think Aguebu's interesting. Like, do you want to put him back there and see if that can be a fit where he can be comfortable?
He's probably better than Caleb Kelly at that right now, just size-wise. Although,
I mean, you're cutting down his responsibilities.
Although, I feel like I should take a victory lap about Caleb Kelly, though. Because years ago, I was saying, maybe he's a defensive end in the future. Maybe he's a pass rusher, and everybody just murdered him. He's 215, no way. That's what he does now.
Look at his greatest game ever at OU.
Playing 9 years at Oklahoma.
On 2 bad knees or 1 really bad knee. I don't know which is which. I can't remember. I think it's the same knee both times.
Well, we should announce to everybody we have lost Bob. Robert has left us.
Oh, he had dad duty.
Husband
duty.
Yep.
It's been, I don't know. This whole experience over the first 3 weeks of the season has been pretty interesting. I mean, we've been doing this for a while. It just seems like there was such a belief that, not only was OU going to be good, but they were going to be national championship good. They were going to be dominant at times. And I think the fact that hasn't been out there has, I don't want to say like hurt anybody's feelings, but I think that there's just a general sense of like throw your hands up in the air. And it's just like, what the what is going on?
Well, I'll say this. As someone who has covered college football for longer than I want to admit, I've seen teams start out worse than this before or about the same. In 2000, before OU won a national championship, nothing particular that was impressive before they went to go play Texas. Kansas came to town.
Pushed them.
They threw it all over their secondary. It looked like, God, this Oklahoma team isn't any good. And then they went and had the Texas win, the 63-14. Or 63-14. And then everybody was like, "Oh shit, this team." And then the Red October happened. So teams can come together and get hot and find a way. Now, you on that team, you're talking about a second-year starter in Josh Heupel. I mean, and it was an offense that, and a defense that there was no such thing as a Roy back at that point, and all that stuff started to develop.
The thing I'm getting in. Go ahead, Eddie.
Oh, I was just going to say real quick, it's almost like they need that rallying moment. And, most of the time, unfortunately, it comes after a loss. I'm not saying that they need to lose a game, but they need something that galvanizes them and kind of gets them together. And maybe it is like a fan base, for the lack of better terms, turning on them, even though they're 3-0, which is kind of crazy. But, like, they need something that they can rally behind.
Maybe. Better way of putting it.
The thing I keep running into on social media, and it's a similar problem to what we talk about every year. When you watch one team, you have a tendency to focus on the good or the bad or whatever it is.
Sure.
No one seems willing to, not no one, but far too many seem unwilling to acknowledge college football in general looks kind of shitty right now. Like, it doesn't, there's no team out there that I would say, oh, you can't beat them. Like, there's not one of them. Now, at the same time, there's about 20 that I'd say wrong day. OU's in trouble. Like, I mean, there's a lot of kind of condensed from like one. I mean, Alabama's okay. Florida just started running zone read at them, like, or some RPO stuff. Like, it was so basic what they did. They simplified everything, and Alabama just could not sort out that option. They were just in trouble the whole time. And in the second half, I think Florida scored 3 straight times, something. I mean, they were just walking up and down the field. And then you've got Georgia, who has offensive problems, as Georgia does every year. Now, they're just nasty up front, as Shane Beamer so beautifully said.
That was fantastic. Yeah.
That was amazing. Yeah. But yeah, I mean,
by the way, no one has 105 stars. Just, I know Shane knows that, but that was pretty funny.
That was great. But yeah, I mean, just to, like I said, usually I'm having to say, guys, I get that you think OU's this good, but man, you haven't seen Clemson, you haven't seen Ohio State, and that's one of the advantages of me being at home, not going to the game. I get to sit here and watch other stuff. I get to absorb other games, that kind of stuff. When I, now people are like, OU's terrible. I'm like, guys, I'm not saying they're playing great football, but I don't know anybody that is. Like, there's nobody out there that's running away with this thing.
This year?
Oh my! Clemson looks lost. I mean, they're
118th in total offense right now.
OU doesn't have a unit that is playing as shockingly bad as Clemson's offensive line right now. Clemson's offensive line's terrible, just terrible. And people are like, well, Georgia beat them; they must be good. Well,
I agree, but doesn't that, in a way, almost kind of make it worse? Because I think that there's fans that sit back and say, now that does make everybody feel better, that everybody that, it's seemingly that all the quote unquote blue bloods or all the big time programs are having problems. But in the way, it's like, wasn't that what Oklahoma was kind of taking advantage of this year, was the fact that they were bringing all these guys back, the fact that they were bringing back a quarterback, and for it to look like shit, or at times look like shit, I think that almost even inflates this idea of, oh my God, what's happening? The sky's falling.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It going into the season, there was a little bit of feeling like, okay, well, Lincoln Riley's he's been one of the better recruiters out there. Now they have a quarterback with some experience coming back, where Ohio State doesn't, Clemson doesn't, like Alabama doesn't. So they should be able to take a jump and become that team. We haven't seen that so far. It's disappointing if you're a fan. I understand it.
Yeah, and that's fair, but I will say, I think this year being so weird because, I would listen to like preview pods, the national kind of views, and they'd be like, this team returns 18 starters. And you're like, wow, that's amazing. And then as you went through it, it was like, no, pretty much everybody had like 17 guys coming back at least. I mean, and it's just the weird year that it was. Now, they're like Alabama, obvious exception. But at the same time, I mean, like I said, Alabama beat up on Miami, and everybody's like, holy crap, they're great. And now we kind of look, we're like, oh, no, Miami's just not very good. Like that, we get it.
I don't think Derek King is very good. I mean, I've been kind of harping on that for a while.
I think there's something to that. And I was a fan. Like, I liked the kid. I thought at Houston he was great.
He's a great athlete, yeah. I mean, but you ask him to be a national championship caliber quarterback, that's not him.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So, I mean, yeah, it nobody looks good. I mean, maybe Oregon's the only one that could say, but they struggle with Fresno State, too.
Fresno State's got a little quarterback, man. I stayed up and watched some of that game last Saturday. That was a bunch of fun watching them play at the Rose Bowl.
That was Nate Hibble-esque, just watching him get destroyed and then just kind of fight his way through it.
I mean, the guy could not walk on the final possession.
I mean, that's probably not fair to that kid. That's Byron Leftwich, like getting carried down the field by his offensive lineman.
God. Forgot about that. All right, Josh, recruits last weekend in, Raleek Brown, others. What's kind of the takeaway from the big recruiting weekend?
Yeah, another good weekend. Obviously, trying to make sure I've got my list. No, of course, I've got the wrong one up here.
By the way, while you're looking for that,
sure.
It was interesting. I didn't know this. Eddie I know we talked about this in the war room, but I was like, ooh, boy, Eric Bieniemy gets that job at USC. Maybe that's bad for OU with Raleek Brown. And then I said that not knowing that the athletic director at USC is the same athletic director that fired him at Colorado. So
yeah, that was an interesting point. I didn't realize that either.
Wow.
I was like, okay, well, don't have to worry about Eric Bieniemy being USC's head coach.
And the thing about it wasn't like a reporter threw that out there. Eric Bieniemy threw that out there.
Yeah.
Well, and what's so interesting to me is like he got that job based on basically the fact that he'd hired Fickle at Cincinnati, because he's made a bunch of questionable hires at both Colorado and Cincinnati, and he got Fickle. Obviously, that's been a huge home run for Cincinnati, so I get it. But now, like, you hear people talking, they're like, those two don't get along that well. Like, that's not – everybody thinks that's just a fit, and even if Luke Fickle was willing to go to Southern California and totally change his lifestyle, being a very Midwest guy, the connection between AD and head coach there is apparently not that beautiful.
By the way, I will say I did watch back last night the big noon kickoff. Bob Stoops, you were fantastic. He was just great on that.
He was playing on home soil, felt good in front of the crowd.
Oh man, he was hamming it up, man. Switzer being there was awesome.
I mean, it's a better show than the other one, but I
was ready for him to throw the Schooner hat on.
What it made me realize is if ESPN would have been smart 5, 6, 7 years ago and convinced Lee Corso to retire after all his strokes and replaced him with Switzer, they could still be at the top of their game.
Oh, God. Switzer on a show like that would be pretty amazing. There's no doubt.
It would be f***ing awesome. So anyway, your list, you were getting it together, I think.
Yeah. Thanks. Bought me a few minutes there. Yeah, so you mentioned Raleek Brown, just to kind of get this one out of the way. I talked to some people. Sounds great. I mean, there doesn't sound like there's any real concern. I believe he's still going to – I think he's going to the USC game this weekend is what I've been told. But just from people I talked to, it doesn't sound like OU's overly worried about that situation. It's just – honestly, with the way USC is right now, you'd almost rather that than like, oh, I'm going to go check out Oregon. Okay, that's a little – you don't love that idea. But I think that's going to be fine. Like I said, I just don't get a lot of sense of, oh, this could be a problem with compared to like Luther Burden. There were, for a while, you knew, okay, this could be an issue. This could come up again. Raleek just doesn't feel that way. The two big time guys that were there officially, that were, I guess, really the two guys that were there that are uncommitted at this point. Cam Dewberry, the 5-star offensive lineman from Atascocita and North Houston, and Gentry Williams, the Rivals 100 DB from Booker T in Tulsa. We'll start with Gentry, being an in-state guy. He and I are actually set to talk here pretty shortly this afternoon. And what we have, kind of had a chance to talk about through the week, he's been very quiet. And I find that kind of interesting. Gentry and I go way back. Like, that, it's never really been that way with he and I. So it feels like he wanted to take some time, think about things, and kind of weigh out what he's thinking. Now, like I said, I'll know more later this afternoon. But from what I'm told, the visit just couldn't have gone better. I mean, it was just very much pretty much everything but committing, was kind of the impression I got. So OU feels good about it. There's a lot of confidence. I think the fact that Chris McClellan went to Florida last week and is now going to come and take his official this weekend to OU, and we'll get into that a little bit, that seems positive as Chris and Gentry talk. Plenty and have taken some trips together and those kind of things. So, but yeah, I like where OU is with Gentry. I wouldn't be shocked if something went down in the next few weeks, but we'll see. I mean, he still has talked about wanting to take an LSU trip. I know USC is still trying to get him to come back out and take an unofficial visit. So there are some things still in play, but what I will say was interesting, and I put it in Woke yesterday, is the school that people are kind of talking about with him right now is Florida. Now, I won't say that is a, people are like, oh, well, now he's just switching schools. He's trying to find a reason not to go to OU. I don't think it's that. I think that he's smart enough to know that USC is just too complicated right now. That's probably not going to be a situation that suits him because all that's going on there, all the change, all the things. He'd have to make a decision without knowing a lot of facts. And Gentry's, that just doesn't strike me as his style. He's a really smart kid, and I just don't see him playing it that way. So like I said, like where OU is with Gentry Williams, we'll know more here shortly. Cam Dewberry raved about it. Talked to our guy Sam Spiegelman. He and his dad called the visit a game changer. And I had said a few weeks ago that I wasn't sure where OU was with him, and just how hard they were going to push for him, how hard they wanted to fight, because you're recruiting against Ohio State, A&M. That's going to be a battle. And everybody just loves Cam. Like I was hearing from guys that are usually like, they've done recruiting forever. They know the game. That not much catches their eye. It was just like, love that guy. Just can't help but love that dude. Want him on the roster. Want him here. That kind of thing. So I think OU has settled whatever it was, and is more than willing to go to war for Cam Dewberry. And I think they've got a good chance. Just talking to some people, like I said, I talked to Sam Spiegelman, who put in a forecast this week for OU with Cam. We'll see. I don't think it's set. I would say OU and A&M are about dead even at this point. I think it's going to be an interesting battle down the stretch, but OU absolutely 100% has a chance to land him.
What do you get a feel for what it was? Because it seems like it was like a head turner for him this weekend.
Yeah, like I said, last week when we talked about it, there has been this feeling for a long time that if OU could just get him back to campus, he loved that first visit so much way back in March of 20, but he just, for whatever reason, hadn't made it back up. I think it'll say a lot if they can get him back up again for something. Just if he can find a way to take one more unofficial visit, I think at that point I would say, okay, yep, I think it's going to be OU. I'm ready to believe in that possibility. But yeah, I don't know that it was any one thing. But I do think, again, the group of offensive linemen, Oklahoma's presence in Houston, there's a lot that he likes there. And Cam knows that he comes to Oklahoma, and he's a unique guy. He's not a pure tackle. He's not a pure guard. He doesn't have an exact role, but one of Bill Bedenbaugh's real strengths, whatever, and I know people out there are kind of, for the first time ever, doubting Bill a little bit. Whatever strength he has, it's about finding the best spot for a guy to play. He'll play a guy anywhere. And I think that appeals a lot to Cam. Like, hey, we'll try you at tackle, we'll try you at guard, we'll see which one works better, and we'll make it go. And I think that appeals to Cam because there's track record there. He has experience with guys who are kind of tweener types. Like Cody Ford's a perfectly good example, a guy that could do a little bit of both. And I think OU has sold him hard on, whatever is best for you is the spot we'll go with.
All right. Outside of that, let's see, no big trips last weekend. So I don't remember getting a bill for that.
No, saw Xavier Bryce, little bit of gas for the truck, but this truck's much cheaper than the F950. That was a here's $700 in gas, Carey. I went down the street. So, but no, Xavier Bryce had like 260 yards of total offense. Played quarterback only for Seguin, but Eddie's put some video up. It was an impressive performance. He is a big, long, athletic dude, and I like what he's about, man. Between he and Robert Spears Jennings, you've got guys that. I just feel like, for no better way to say it, they get it. They understand what it takes, that they're workers, like they're bought in. And I think that is going to be very good for Oklahoma secondary, which is going to have plenty of talent, but needs some leadership, in my opinion. And I think they can be those kind of guys. So I like that fit. And the more I'm around Xavier, the more I like him. This weekend, though, I do want to throw in, getting to go see Gabe Dendy finally. Going to go down to Florida, fly into Tampa, and go see Gabe Dendy. Was supposed to see him last year. when I saw Danny Stutzman and Mario Williams, but due to COVID, their game got canceled, and then I couldn't actually end up getting to meet him because, again, COVID protocols were kind of crazy at that point in time. So we had a lot of issues, but now finally going to get to go see him play tomorrow night. Should be, it's just kind of the way the schedule worked out. It was the best time for me to go see him. Probably going to be a blowout, but hey, the nice part is he'll probably put up some nice videos, so we'll get to watch him kind of go to work.
And you can ask him how church service was.
Yeah, that's going to be.
Did you ever get any answers on how they pulled that off?
No, and it's been weirdly quiet. Like I said, the only thing that was made clear was we ran this by the right people, was basically what I was told. Yeah. So I know it was vetted and cleared before anybody did anything crazy, but what technicality they slid that by on, I still don't fully understand.
It's kind of funny that you're headed down to Florida, and if we want to start previewing who's coming up to Norman this weekend. Another night game offers an opportunity to host Marvin Jones Jr.
Yeah, that is, like I said, another one of those guys I went to my last Florida trip to see, and that guy, I want to say we've got Marvin ranked in the 70s, and I just couldn't disagree more with it. I think he's a 5-star dude, an elite pass rusher. And, as a guy that, Plantation, for those that aren't familiar, just a little north of Miami, about 25, 30 minutes, and very much a, part of the city, though, and is a guy that doesn't, talking to him and talking to his mom a little bit, that doesn't feel like the normal Miami guy. That feels like a guy that could buy into small college town, just focus on football, be that kind of guy. And I would have said at the start of the season, no way in hell he's not going to Florida State. But like we said earlier, the train wreck that is becoming, surely that's opening the door for some schools. Now, with Marvin Jones, he's going to visit Ohio State. He's going to visit Alabama. He's going to visit, this is this is big boy football. Everybody that matters is involved with him. And so it won't get decided this weekend, but I know he's been impressed with Jamar Cain. They've built a good relationship, both Cain and himself, Cain and his family, his mother in particular. So I think there's some interesting stuff. And this weekend could be special for OU because Marvin Jones' half-brother, Daryl Porter, is one of West Virginia's starting corners. So they get to be there, watch him play. Now what that's going to look like in the ticketed section when, mama starts cheering for her son making a play and everybody's like, man, hell with you. We'll see how that goes. But, bottom line is, like I said, I think it'll be kind of a cool experience. It's one of the reasons they wanted to come this weekend so they could also see Daryl play. So there's some connection there that is, that's pretty interesting. And like I said, I don't think OU's anywhere near the favorite for Marvin Jones, but they've got a chance.
Sorry, I ran into the other room real quick.
No, fine.
I was listening.
Chris McClellan and Gavin Sawchuk, the other two official visitors for the weekend.
Yeah, and I know there had been – I was told there was a report out that Sawchuk wasn't coming in. I checked with him, heard back late last night. He is coming in this weekend for the official, so everything, as far as I know, seems fine with him. Oh, no. Nope. Wow. I'm going back to check my information. I'm like, I read that at 4:30 in the morning, and I read it wrong. So Gavin Sawchuk will be in the TCU weekend. And I got to be honest, that is what Gavin Sawchuk told me 2 weeks ago, and I somehow had put it in as West Virginia. So blame that on me and Jake Taylor having a conversation that had nothing to do with it. So that is that's a long, convoluted story that I won't waste everybody's time with. But I had been talking to Jake and Gavin at the same time, and I crossed the streams there. So, yeah, Gavin Sawchuk will not. Well, yeah, that does sound bad. That's fair. For the kiddies out there, there's a Ghostbusters movie that you should watch.
Can't go near a school for a month now.
Oh, that's bad. Yeah, and here in Texas, man, you got to give them your ID. They scan it. It's a whole thing. Was really nervous the first time, but apparently those charges were dropped, so it's fine. But no. Yeah, like I said, so I need to remove that. But yes, Chris McClellan, confirmed. Chris McClellan will be there. He is coming in. Can absolutely say that with certainty. McClellan is a guy that, like I said earlier, I think it's interesting. He was at Florida, Alabama last weekend while Gentry was taking his official to OU, and now he's immediately going to come in. That feels like maybe a guy that's getting close to a decision because, I mean, he's an in-state guy. He's got plenty of opportunities to go take this trip to Norman, and it's not like this is some opportune weekend. He's playing Union on Friday night, so, I mean, there's no obvious reason why it has to be this weekend. So, like I said, maybe he's just a guy that kind of knows what he's getting close to and getting ready to make a decision. And like I said, I still think it comes down to OU and Ohio State, and this will be his second time at OU in 3 weeks. That seems like a good trend, but you just never write off Larry Johnson. I mean, he's such an outstanding recruiter at Ohio State that you have to take that seriously.
All right. Anything else recruiting-wise you want to throw out there before we get out of here today?
The last thing, and it's just because I just confirmed it right before the podcast started, Levius Overton, the 5-star number 7 player in the country in 2023, will be on campus again this weekend.
Wow.
So they are, that's a huge one for Oklahoma. Derek Moore coming back, the Maryland defensive end that's committed already. And the other one that's interesting is Jackson Howard from Minnesota is coming in. I can't remember the last time OU had an offer kid from Minnesota on campus. But what's interesting is Howard's listed as a tight end on Rivals. Based on a few conversations I've had, I think he's being looked at as an edge for Oklahoma, kind of a Darnell Washington situation. Well, I don't know what he thinks of that, but for him to make the trip down to Norman from Minnesota, he's got to be at least somewhat interested. So it's not a huge visit weekend, but there's some definite players here.
Seems like that is a straight product of them playing at night, too. That's just something that couldn't happen for an 11 a.m. game.
Yeah. No,
maybe even
like
same
I said,
with Jake Taylor. It's like you get some of these kids that are taking flights in. I mean, it's just way too hard to get these kids in if you're playing 11 a.m. games all the time.
100%. Damn near impossible.
All right. I really have nothing else to add. I won't admit that I couldn't remember who the shame lady was on Game of Thrones. And then I didn't. Somebody told me the other day that that's the owner on Ted Lasso. She was also the shame girl in Game of Thrones.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah. Eddie's not seen Game of Thrones, I can already tell.
No.
Or
we'll
Ted
have plenty
Lasso.
of time to throw shame around if they go out and get beat over the next couple weeks.
Just play that clip all the time, yeah. All right. I think that's going to do it. That's definitely going to do it. So we appreciate it. We'll be back next week. We'll be back for the Eskridge Lexus post-game pod. And don't forget Dead Soxy, that new collection. I know a lot of the Maker Bayfields have been going fast, so I think their supply is very limited. So get on that while you can, deadsoxy.com. And appreciate everybody listening. We'll be back again next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 from SoonerScoop.com.